The glorification of being a war hero inspired many to join the armed forces. This glorification had many look past potential risks of war. Not only was there risk of death, but also risk of being captured. Frank Savicki was one of these people. In 1914, Frank moved from Poland to the USA with his younger sister and uncle. He and his family were one of the thousands that immigrated from Europe to the United States. At the age of 16, Frank helped his family financially by working in the coal mines, one of the few jobs that would hire regardless of one's possession and citizenship. But this wouldn't be a problem because just a year later, Frank was able to get his U.S. citizenship. Soon after this, Frank took nationalism to the next level and enrolled in the army where he was deployed in France to help fight the Germans. The United States didn't want to be a part of this war, but were forced to after Germany took down a British ship, killing over 1,000 people, including the Americans. Not only this, but Germany tried to convince Mexico to go to war with the U.S., saying that Mexico should try and get their land back that was rightfully theirs. Congress then passed a bill which would ultimately make them prepared for war, and when 4 more U.S. ships were brought down, President Wilson would then appear before court, calling for the declaration of war against Germany, then being passed within 4 days. Over the duration of World War I, about 8 to 9 million people were held hostage and taken to prison. Many were held in disgusting camps never to be seen again. One man by the name of Frank Savicki was one of these people. The U.S. had nothing to do with the First World War, and pledged to their own citizens they were not about to be a part of this one. Frank Savicki is an example of a prisoner captured during World War I, and was the first American prisoner to escape. Savicki was a small soldier. He was a member of the 28th Division, a Pennsylvania National Guard unit, also known as the Iron Division, for its endurance in battle. Savicki had the middleman between B Company of the C Company, which means he was the means of communication for these two groups. Savicki was the only one of these three to survive the action that day and soon taken by Germans after being found hiding in a hole. The Germans interviewed him between the front lines, then locked him in a guarded farmhouse. He was abandoned there for 2 days, without food, water, and electricity. On the 3rd day, Frank was transported to a German prison in France called Loen, held several hundred other Americans, French, British, and Italians. Savicki spent 6 weeks in the Loen camp prison. They worked every day from 7 o'clock in the morning until 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and were divided into groups to work on the roads, railroads, or unloading supplies. Rations were scarce. At morning and night we were given a can of so-called coffee. At noon we were given soup made of some kind of grass and horse meat. Living conditions were terrible. There were no beds in the barracks, and none of them had blankets. Frank slept on the barn floor. There was cold water in the yard, but no soap for taking a bath. No one had a change of clothes, and there was no one who could wash the ones they already had. Almost everyone was covered with lice. Savicki was then transferred to Rastet in Baden. He survived on 1 piece of bread and 2 drinks of water per day. He spent about 2 weeks at Rastet, where conditions were better than Loen. Savicki got a bath and a change of underwear. He remained 15 days in this camp and received 2 boxes from the Red Cross, each containing 10 pounds of canned meat, beans, and surprisingly, tobacco. Savicki worked every day on a farm owned by an elderly German and his wife. He was quartered in a guardhouse with several Russians, and a former subject of the Tsar. Savicki spoke Russian and became friends with them, picking up what they had learned about the possibilities of escape. Some of them had been captives for nearly 4 years. After 2 weeks on the farm, he decided to make a run for Switzerland. That night, he was able to trick the guard, lock him in the guardhouse, and escape. He cut straight across country, avoiding all highways. He traveled all night and used a knob of the mountain to guide himself to Switzerland. When he arrived near the border, he saw barbed wire, railroad tracks, and river 10 feet wide. Saviki noticed that the guards stayed in their boxes and didn't patrol. The river was too broad to jump, so he decided to try vaulting it with a nearby stick. After dark, he crawled for 6 hours to avoid barbed wire. He then came to the railroad track, easily remedied, surpassed it. He then arrived at the edge of the river. His freedom was 10 feet away in Switzerland. He then pole vaulted over to the other side. The pole sank 4 feet into the mud of the river bottom. Private Frank Saviki landed deep in the water and was able to wade through it, clinging to a clump of grass on the Swiss bank. Finally, he pulled himself onto the land. He was a prisoner no more.
I'll never say never again, 'cause here I am in love again, head over heels in love again with you. I'll never say never kiss you again, 'cause here I'm kissing you again. That's just the thing I said I'd never do. I walked away and said goodbye. I was hasty, wasn't I missed you so I thought I'd die. But it's all over now, throw my hat in the sky. I'll never say never again, 'cause here I am in love again, head over heels in love again with the same sweet you.